Get any pilot, just need something with jets. The colonel roared over maps covered in red marks. Infantry unit trapped. Air support nowhere in sight. A staff member quietly said, "There's an A-10 pilot reporting ready." He snapped, "A-10? That plane's completely obsolete." But 3 minutes later, when that distinctive growl echoed across the sky, a warthog swept by so low it rattled the windows. The colonel shot to his feet. Who exactly is flying that thing? Setting: Joint Battlefield Support Coordination Base. Emergency rescue operation for Alpha 3 team trapped in Rebel Zone J11. Breaking news: infantry unit pinned down. Enemy artillery closing in. Air support delayed due to electromagnetic interference. Colonel McAllister demanded, "Get any pilot. Just need jets and arrival within 15 minutes." Coordination staff listed options: F-35S grounded for maintenance, F-18S refueling. A junior support officer quietly suggested, "There's a pilot coordinating outside the zone, flying an A-10C ready to take orders." McAllister shook his head. "Don't need a flying tank. Get me jets." But suddenly satellite signals reported an A-10 approaching J11 zone without clearance from command station. An officer asked, "Who authorized takeoff?" The coordinator replied, "Nobody. She heard the emergency call and took off on her own." The room buzzed with confusion and concern. McAllister grabbed the radio. "Unknown A-10, identify yourself and return to base immediately." Static. A communications officer tried different frequencies. A-10 and J11 airspace, respond immediately, more static. "Sir," the radar operator called out, "the A-10 is maintaining radio silence, but she's vectoring directly toward the trapped infantry position." McAllister slammed his hand on the table. "This is a violation of every protocol we have. Who is this pilot?" The support officer checked his logs. "Call sign Raven 13. But sir, there's no active pilot with that designation." "What do you mean, no active pilot?" "I mean, Raven 13 isn't on any current roster. The call sign was retired." A senior officer looked up from his terminal. "Retired when?" "After Operation Hoarfrost, 3 years ago." The room fell silent except for the hum of equipment and radio chatter from the battlefield. McAllister studied the radar screen showing the A-10's approach. "Get me everything we have on Raven 13. "Sir, those files are classified." "I don't care what they're classified as. I have an unauthorized aircraft in a combat zone, and I need to know who's flying it." The communications officer's radio crackled to life with transmissions from the trapped infantry. Any station, this is Alpha 3. We are taking heavy fire. Request immediate air support." "Alpha 3, this is base. Air support is en route." "Base, how long? We're getting hammered here." Before anyone at base could respond, a calm female voice cut through the static. "Alpha 3, this is Raven 13. I have eyes on your position." The room went dead quiet. McAllister grabbed the microphone. "Raven 13, you are not authorized for this mission. Return to base immediately." The woman's voice came back, steady and professional. "Alpha 3 needs immediate support. I'm in position to provide it." "Raven 13, that's a direct order. RTB now." "Colonel, with respect, those soldiers don't have time for protocols." The radio went silent. Alpha 3's voice came through, desperate. "Any air support, please. We're about to be overrun." McAllister stared at the radio, then at the radar screen showing Raven 13's position. A long moment passed. Finally, he keyed the microphone. "Raven 13, you're cleared to engage." But there was no response. She was already beginning her attack run. "I don't wait for permission, because I once waited, and they weren't left alive to thank me." The A-10 approached low radar tracking. Altitude 300 feet, extremely low speed, classic flying tank profile. Infantry reported, "We hear Warthog engines, someone's providing air support." Colonel McAllister rushed to the screen, saw the display showing, "Pilot, Raven 13, no unit ID." Over internal radio, a female voice calmly announced, "Raven 13 in the zone. Mark enemy artillery positions. Turn off laser guidance. I'm using visual." The coordination officer shouted, That's old school targeting. No pilot attempts that in heavy fog. But then, brrr, the distinctive sound of the A-10 cannon echoed across the valley. 3 enemy artillery positions erupted in flames. Ground units cheered. Air support is millimeter precise. Who is that pilot? Before leaving the area, Raven 13 transmitted, Alpha 3 will live. I'm departing. Everyone tried to maintain frequency contact, but she cut radio before anyone could ask for identification. The coordination room remained in stunned silence as the implications sank in. Did she just conduct a perfect close air support mission using visual targeting and near-zero visibility? A young officer asked. The radar operator was studying his screen. I've never seen approach patterns like that. She came in below the terrain masking, used the ridgelines for cover, and attacked from an angle that gave her perfect target separation. McAllister grabbed the radio again. Raven 13, respond. We need a debrief. Silence. Raven 13, you are ordered to return for debriefing. Still nothing. Alpha 3's voice came through, filled with relief and amazement. Base, this is Alpha 3. Enemy artillery has been completely neutralized. That pilot, that was the most precise close air support I've ever seen. Alpha 3, can you provide details on the attack? Base, she took out 3 concealed artillery positions with surgical precision. No collateral damage, no friendly fire incidents. And she did it in conditions where our own targeting systems couldn't get a lock. A technical officer pulled up weapon system data. According to our sensors, she fired only 60 rounds from the GAU-8. That's incredibly efficient. 60 rounds for 3 targets. Most pilots would have expended 3 times that ammunition for the same result. McAllister turned to his staff. How is that possible? An older officer, a former A-10 pilot himself, spoke up. Sir, that level of precision comes from experience, a lot of it. And most of it earned in situations where missing wasn't an option. What do you mean? I mean, whoever Raven 13 is, she's been in situations where she had to make every shot count because there wouldn't be a second chance. The communications officer tried one more time. Raven 13, please respond. We just want to acknowledge your assistance. The radio remained silent. Alpha 3 transmitted again. Base, we're mobile and heading to extraction point. But we wanted you to know that pilot saved our lives. All 12 of us. McAllister sat down heavily. 12 soldiers alive because someone broke protocol. Sir, I said no A-10s. I specifically said I wanted jets only. If that pilot had followed orders. He didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood. A staff officer approached cautiously. Colonel, should we file a report about the unauthorized mission? McAllister looked at the tactical display, showing Alpha 3's successful movement to safety. File what report? That an unknown pilot conducted a textbook close air support mission and saved 12 lives? Well, yes, sir. Protocol would have left Alpha 3 to die while we waited for authorized aircraft. The room fell silent again. The radar operator spoke up. Sir, I'm showing the A-10 has completely left our tracking area. Wherever she's going, it's outside our surveillance zone. Any idea which direction? Negative, sir. She dropped below radar coverage using terrain masking. McAllister turned to the support officer who had first mentioned Raven 13. You said this call sign was retired after Operation Hoarfrost? Yes, sir. What happened during Hoarfrost? The officer hesitated. Sir, I'd need to access classified files to give you details. Then access them. Sir, that requires... I don't care what it requires. I want to know who just saved 12 American soldiers and why she's not on our active roster. As the staff worked to access the classified information, Alpha 3 made their final transmission. Base, Alpha 3 has reached extraction point safely. Please pass our thanks to Raven 13. We owe her everything. McAllister keyed the microphone. Alpha 3, message received. Glad you made it home. Base, one more thing. That pilot, the way she flew, the precision of her attack. We've worked with a lot of air support. This was different. Different how? Different like someone who's done this before in situations where perfect wasn't good enough. My name isn't on the mission roster, but I still fly because I once heard a call that nobody answered. After Alpha 3's successful rescue, Colonel McAllister demanded an investigation. Who is Raven 13? Nobody could find any unit assignment for that call sign. But in the archives, a technician remembered Raven 13 used to be the call sign of a pilot removed from active duty after Operation Hoarfrost. Old files were opened. Name, Aaliyah Reinhardt, A-10 pilot, once commended for bringing her squadron home through a zone where electromagnetic interference destroyed all navigation systems. But she was suspended for unauthorized takeoff without orders, despite saving 18 lives. Aaliyah disappeared from the system, never returned. A technician recalled, "She once said, as long as there's one person who needs me on the ground, I won't leave my aircraft." Colonel McAllister listened without comment, then issued an order. Update Raven 13 call sign to emergency response roster. And next time, don't judge pilots by their aircraft model. The technician who had pulled Aaliyah's file continued reading. "Sir, there's more to the Hoarfrost story. Go on." Operation Hoarfrost was a disaster from the start. Command sent a mixed squadron into hostile territory based on faulty intelligence. McAllister leaned forward. "What kind of faulty intelligence?" "The enemy had advanced surface-to-air missile systems that weren't in our briefings. They also had electronic warfare capabilities that jammed all GPS and radio communications." A senior officer who had been quiet until now spoke up. "I remember Hoarfrost. We lost 6 aircraft and 22 air crew in the first wave." The technician nodded. "That's when pilot Reinhardt made her unauthorized takeoff. She flew into the combat zone without orders, without radio contact, using only visual navigation. And she found the survivors, all 18 of them, scattered across 30 square miles of hostile territory." McAllister was studying the file closely. "How did she coordinate their rescue without radio communication?" "She didn't coordinate it, sir. She executed it herself." "What do you mean?" The senior officer answered. "She made multiple trips, used her A-10 as a flying shield, drawing enemy fire while ground rescue teams extracted survivors." Multiple trips? 17 separate rescue runs over 8 hours, each time flying back into increasingly heavy surface-to-air missile fire. The room was completely silent as the magnitude of what they were hearing sank in. The technician continued. "On her final run, she took significant damage. Lost hydraulics, partial engine failure, navigation systems completely destroyed. But she made it back. Barely. Emergency landing on a road 20 miles from base. Aircraft was a total loss." McAllister looked up from the file. "So why was she suspended?" The senior officer's expression darkened. "Because she violated direct orders. Command had called off all rescue attempts, declared the area too dangerous for further operations." She was ordered not to attempt rescue? She was ordered to stand down. Command had written off the 18 survivors as acceptable losses. The weight of that statement hung in the air. And she flew anyway. She flew anyway. McAllister closed the file. What happened during her disciplinary hearing? The technician checked his records. She was given the option to accept a reprimand and continue flying, or maintain that her actions were justified and face dismissal. Which did she choose? She said, and I quote, "I will not apologize for bringing 18 people home alive. If that's grounds for dismissal, then I accept dismissal." So they kicked her out. They kicked out the pilot who had just executed the most successful combat rescue operation in squadron history. A communications officer who had been listening asked, "What happened to the 18 people she rescued?" 15 returned to active duty. 2 were medically retired due to injuries. 1 became a training instructor. And they all testified on her behalf? Every single one. They petitioned command to reverse the disciplinary action. Did it work? The senior officer shook his head. Command decided that allowing unauthorized rescue operations would set a dangerous precedent. They upheld the dismissal. McAllister stood up and walked to the window overlooking the flight line. So we dismissed our most effective rescue pilot for the crime of saving lives. That's one way to put it, sir. And now she's out there somewhere, still flying rescue missions without authorization. The technician added, according to these files, there have been 17 unexplained successful rescues over the past 3 years, all in situations where official rescue operations were deemed too risky. 17? 17 times someone in distress received air support from an unidentified A-10. Someone who appeared without being called, completed the mission, and disappeared without asking for recognition. McAllister turned back to his staff. Show me the pattern. Maps were spread across the table, marked with locations and dates. Look at this, the communications officer pointed out. Every single incident occurred in areas where official rescue operations had been called off or deemed impossible. And the timing? In every case, the unofficial rescue happened within hours of the official decision to abandon the mission. McAllister studied the pattern. It's like she's monitoring our communications, listening for people we decide not to help. Sir, that would require access to classified communication channels. She used to have that access. Maybe she kept it. A security officer raised concerns. If she's maintaining unauthorized access to military communications, that's a serious breach. McAllister looked at him directly. 17 successful rescues, 67 lives saved, 0 casualties. And you're worried about communication security? Sir, protocol required Alpha 3 to die today while we waited for authorized aircraft. Would you prefer that outcome? The security officer fell silent. McAllister made a decision. I want Raven 13's call sign reactivated, unofficial status, emergency response only. Sir, we can't officially activate someone who's not in the system. Then don't make it official, make it available. I don't understand. Make sure that when someone needs help and we can't provide it officially, there's still a frequency they can call. The senior officer understood. A backup system for when the official system fails. Exactly. The technician asked, what if she doesn't want to be reactivated? McAllister looked at the map showing today's successful rescue. She already reactivated herself. We're just acknowledging what's already happening. Comment for the one who took off anyway. If you believe some orders are answered before they're given. 3 days later, at the auxiliary field of base A-17, an old A-10 appeared in the morning fog. Nobody saw who landed it. In the cockpit seat, only a piece of paper. I don't ask to be thanked. I just need to know they're still alive. Alpha 3 sent up a small badge, engraved, to Raven 13, who saw before radar did. Nobody met Aaliyah again, but whenever there was an area no pilot wanted to take, the signal Raven 13 in the vicinity would automatically appear. Colonel McAllister drove to the auxiliary field that morning, following reports of an unauthorized aircraft landing. The old A-10 sat on the tarmac like it belonged there, though no flight plan had been filed. Security personnel had cordoned off the area, but McAllister waved them back. Let me see the aircraft. He approached the cockpit and found the handwritten note. Reading it, he understood something fundamental about the pilot who had saved Alpha 3. A maintenance sergeant approached. Sir, should we impound the aircraft? McAllister looked at the weathered A-10, noting the careful maintenance despite its age, the non-standard modifications, the evidence of extensive combat experience. Has it been properly maintained? Sir, this aircraft is in better condition than most of our active fleet. Someone's been taking exceptional care of it. Any idea where it's been based? No official records, sir. But based on the modifications and wear patterns, I'd say it's been operating independently for years. McAllister walked around the aircraft, noting details that told a story. Extra armor plating, upgraded avionics, modifications that could only come from someone who understood combat operations intimately. Sergeant, I want this aircraft moved to Hangar 7, post-security, but don't treat it as evidence. Sir? Treat it as a reserve asset. Someone might need it again. Word of the mysterious A-10 spread through the base. Pilots came to look at the aircraft that had executed the perfect rescue mission. Look at these modifications, one pilot observed. Whoever flies this knows exactly what they're doing. The targeting system has been completely rebuilt. This is precision equipment. And look at the ammunition storage, configured for maximum efficiency with minimal waste. A veteran pilot who had flown A-10s in combat studies the aircraft carefully. This isn't just maintenance. This is love. What do you mean? I mean, someone has poured their heart into keeping this machine combat ready. This level of care, it's personal. McAllister returned the next day with the badge from Alpha 3. He placed it carefully in the cockpit where the note had been. "Sir," a security officer approached, "we've had reports of someone visiting the aircraft at night. Did you investigate?" "We tried, sir, but whoever it is knows how to avoid security patrols." McAllister smiled slightly. "Maybe we're not supposed to catch them." "Sir, maybe some things work better when we don't interfere." Over the following weeks, maintenance crews noticed that the A-10 was always in perfect condition, despite no official maintenance being performed. "It's like someone's taking care of it," a crew chief reported. "Any idea who?" "No, sir, but whoever it is knows A-10 systems better than anyone on our staff." McAllister established a new protocol. Hangar 7 would remain accessible to authorized personnel only, but security would be flexible regarding after-hours access. The message was clear. Someone was maintaining a combat-ready aircraft for emergency use, and the base would quietly support that capability. "What do we call this arrangement?" his deputy asked. "We call it insurance," McAllister replied, "for when official channels fail." Comment, "I'd ride behind that A-10 if you believe trust is earned in the skies, not in signatures." On the center wall of the base headquarters, a small metal plaque was mounted with no name, only a symbol. Silhouette of an A-10 flying through smoke. Below it, the code. Raven 13 new pilots were briefed. If you hear someone requesting support and nobody responds, remember, Raven 13 might have heard it before you did. And if you see an old A-10 parked off the official roster, don't touch it. That belongs to someone who arrives before orders are even given. The plaque became something of a legend among aircrew. New pilots would ask about it, and veterans would tell the story carefully, respectfully. Who was Raven 13? Someone who understood that saving lives matters more than following procedures. Is she still active? She's active when she needs to be. The unofficial Raven 13 protocol evolved into something unique in military aviation. When official rescue operations were deemed too risky, when command had to make the difficult decision to abandon personnel, there remained one final option, a frequency that wasn't officially monitored, but somehow always answered. A call sign that didn't appear on any roster, but appeared when needed. An aircraft that wasn't officially maintained, but was always combat ready. Colonel McAllister retired 2 years later. At his farewell ceremony, he addressed the assembled pilots. "You'll face situations where the book doesn't have an answer, where protocol conflicts with conscience. When that happens, remember that the mission isn't about following orders perfectly, it's about bringing people home." He looked directly at the Raven 13 plaque. Sometimes the most important operations happen outside official channels. That doesn't make them wrong, it makes them necessary. After the ceremony, maintenance crews found a new note in the cockpit of the A-10 in Hangar 7. "Thank you for understanding that some things are bigger than regulations." The note was signed simply. R-13 McAllister's replacement, Colonel Sarah Chen, continued the unofficial Raven 13 protocol. When questioned about the irregular arrangement, she gave the same response McAllister had. Some capabilities are too valuable to eliminate just because they don't fit standard procedures. The A-10 in Hangar 7 flew 12 more rescue missions over the next 3 years. Each time it appeared when needed, completed the mission flawlessly, and returned to its unofficial status. The Raven 13 plaque gained additional meaning among aircrews. It represented not just one pilot, but a principle that sometimes the most important work happens in the spaces between official policy. New pilots would stand before the plaque and understand that they were part of something larger than regulations and procedures. They were part of a commitment to bring people home, regardless of the obstacles. And somewhere, an aging A-10 remained ready, maintained by someone who understood that duty doesn't end with discharge papers. The last line was added to the plaque years later. For those who fly when others cannot.
If you believe in stories that touch the heart like this one, please leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe to LN Steelheart Stories. We tell the stories that shouldn't be forgotten. Real people creating and telling stories, not mass-produced AI.